What's up, everybody? This week at the Lonely Girls podcast, we had Lauren Loscig. She is an author, and her debut novel is called War Hour. It's been released for a little while, and she's in the midst of doing the editing of Valorborn, which she has just released the title for. Very exciting. There's also going to be more news on her Instagram if this book sounds like it is up your alley. Lauren is an indie author who has been working on getting her name out there. She's so sweet, and I loved having her on the podcast. She has so much wisdom to impart onto you. And she just has a great story. I just love the characters that she's created and the mental health things that she has been able to add to her book to help other people. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello, Lauren Loscig. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to do this.
Of course. I just want to say real quick that I'm just so excited for the success that you've been having. I love seeing your numbers grow, and you get to go to is it a book con or something? I don't remember what it's called.
Yes. It's a romantasy book con. It's like they have like panels, but they're also gonna have like book signings and stuff. It's my first opportunity where I'm gonna get to like meet readers and stuff, so I'm very, very excited.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to so promote that so we can get lots of people there. Where is it?
It's in Orlando.
Okay.
Like right next to Disney, because it's like the Disney Hilton or whatever. So it's like right next to Disney. So I'm very excited.
Ooh, are you going to go to Disney after?
If I kind of want to, we're gonna see how I can plan it out. But maybe I can go for like a day or two, like after or before the conference. But I'm mostly really excited for the book event because
Yeah.
even as a even as a reader, I have not really gone to any book events yet, so it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. Good. Okay, so my first question for you is who was your favorite character to write?
It's such a good question, and it's also so hard at the same time. Um, so personally, for me right now, I would say it would have to be Lista, mainly because I understand all of my characters so well. They all kind of feel like not children, for example, but like I love them all so dearly. But I love writing Lista because um, so Lista has anxiety, and that's one of my favorite things. That was one of the first things that I picked about writing her was that she's going to be someone who wants to do the right thing and she's going to want to make a difference, but like that does not make the anxiety go away. That does not make the fear go away. And me myself, I'm a very anxious person, and getting to see how she would handle these situations with that anxiety still has to be my favorite thing to write because it's very empowering in a sense because
Mm,
it like anxiety can be overcome. It's not like the end all of the world, but it's also something that's like very, it can be a physical reaction. It can be something that's really hard to overcome. But at the same time, it makes her very real. So I love writing that aspect of her. So she would definitely be my favorite to write for that reason.
I love that. I don't know if I caught that the first time, but I think the second time I'll pay attention to those. I'm I've have like brain fog a lot, so it's not your fault that I didn't catch it. Oh,
It's never explicitly stated, but it's people who definitely have a lot of anxiety will start to pick up some of the reactions she has and some of
mhm.
the thoughts that she has as she's going through her story.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think it's so cool. There's a trend going on right now in books I've noticed, at least the authors I've interviewed, that like mental health is very present and
Hmm.
it's not just mental health, it's how they overcome it in like a very
Hmm.
inspiring way. And I really love to see it. So,
Yeah, it's so important.
It really is. Okay, who is your most challenging character to write?
Hmm. So in War Hour sequel that's coming up, Valorborn, we have more than one POV, and I haven't announced who that character is yet, but that was a very, very difficult experience for me to write. Um, this particular character, I definitely had to battle a lot with how the readers perceived her and kind of once you start seeing more of her internal monologue, there's definitely like a juxtaposition there of like some of it is what she's putting on a front. So when you kind of have to show who she was and who the readers loved her for, but at the same time, she has a deepness to her that's not the same as what she shows on the surface level. So I really had to battle there with letting her be who she needed to be, but also trying to keep her at her roots of the person that she was that readers fell in love with. So she
Mm.
was a very difficult character to write.
Hmm. Yeah, because you have to figure out how to put like the facade, the mask, but then you also have to find the internal things that would make her
Yes.
also real. Yeah, I can see why that would be hard. Okay, what can you tell us about your new book coming out called Valorborn?
um, I will say that you will know a whole lot very, very soon. I'm kind of switching up my release method than I did with War Hour. With War Hour, like I was advertising or promoting with like certain scenes and snippets like before it was even finished. And for Valorborn, I very much wanted to um kind of cut it builds suspense, but it also I want to give everything like as much as I can all in one period of time. So everyone's going to be seeing everything very, very quickly. I have lots of exciting reveals, lots of character art, um, lots of exciting things to say. For in terms of like what we can share about it, um, let's say Lista's journey does not get any easier. I will say that.
Mhm.
I think we definitely saw in War Hour a real growth in her, but she still has a long way to go, and she still like each um, each book that we go through, she's definitely creating new problems as old ones are resolved. So I'm very excited for all the readers to see her new journey and like the new things that she faces, but also get to see this new character's perspective. Um, I'm especially excited for everyone to see more of like Aloria, and we're definitely getting more courts. We're getting more trials.
Ooh.
Um, so all of the fun things that people are really excited about, I'm really excited to. We'll get more of that in this next one. But I'm so excited. It's gonna be so weird having a second book out, and not just be something that's been mine this whole time. But it's gonna be good. I hope.
Yay! Okay, well, I'll be looking out because your street team's probably a part of your reveals, right? So I'll
Yeah.
be looking out for that. Let's see. Oh, what was your inspiration for Lista, and how did you find her name? I haven't seen that name very often, so it's pretty cool.
So for her name, I didn't really have a direct inspiration for it. I definitely like we like you ever see like the tips where you're kind of looking at a bunch of different names that kind of resonate with you, but then combining them with other things.
Mm.
It was definitely kind of like it was definitely very hard finding the right name for her. And for a while, I was thinking that Listed would actually be her placeholder name while I wrote, and it was not going to be her final name. I've actually never said this before.
Oh.
I was looking for something. I wanted something that I didn't want something that was too tough for her, but I didn't want something like that was too delicate. I wanted something that kind of was in the middle, and I kind of eventually just fell in love with it as I was writing because it just very much she became Lista rather than me naming her Lista. So it really worked out that way. And then what was the first part of the question?
Yeah, what was your inspiration for her character?
Um, she's very much someone who she's very much someone who um wants to be more, but doesn't know how to be what that is yet. She's very much someone who's like, someone else can fix this. And she doesn't in the beginning think that she really can. So I really, when I was writing her, I wanted someone that could be empowering in a way that you might not believe in yourself at any given time. You might not um, think that you can do something, but just because you think that doesn't make it absolutely true. Like there's things that you can accomplish that are worlds outside of what you believe you could actually do. So it was very much a hopeful kind of um, being riddled, like with we talked about earlier, with anxiety and not feeling like she has the power to make real change, but then small steps along the way, and she's suddenly able to do a lot more than she ever believed was possible. So
Mm,
I would say that.
nice. Does that come from like your own life or just feeling like that kind of character is missing in our books?
I wouldn't say it's missing. I would definitely say that we've seen a lot of great characters across the decades, especially in the YA space, that kind of have challenged what we believe like a hero can be and the path that they follow to get there. I definitely do think that we all want to see change and we all want to be hopeful that we can be part of that change. I definitely think that
Mm,
had a role to play in it. Um, but I just wanted someone that I would have looked up to reading in whether it be middle school or high school or maybe even college, where I was reading all these YA books and I was looking for these inspiring characters. I think I definitely wanted to write someone who I would have looked up to. So I think that had a
mm.
lot to do with it.
Yeah, I that's why I read too, is to find inspiration. When I was
Mm,
in 2020, I got really, really sick and I couldn't get out of bed.
mm, mm.
And let me tell you, you have to find new ways to cope with these things and new ways to find the will to live, I guess. And that's when I found like Feyre from A Court of Thorns and Roses. She was very inspiring for me. Um, Evangeline Fox, she was super inspiring. So I love a
Yeah,
good inspirational character. That's part of
yeah.
why I love to read. They just make me so happy and it helps me to find reasons to fight. So thank you for doing that for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I love that too. The characters that have been dealt a rough hand, like when you were sick, and then who have made a better outcome of it and have found something to go from it, somewhere to go from there. So I love that.
Yeah. I always believe that there's purpose in your pain. And so, but it's how you use it. If you're gonna believe that it's a waste, then that's what it's gonna become, right? But if you let it become a part of your story and why you're stronger and why people should um, push past their pain, then there's purpose in it, right?
Yep, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Um, why did you want a book where you can earn your powers? Is there like a deeper meaning behind this, maybe? Or,
So some of it may stem from a small part of it may stem from being younger, being reading some of the most popular YA books where it was always that there were select people who were chosen or they started off with their destiny was already written. Like if you have these great immeasurable powers, if you already have this purpose, it's kind of you have a couple ways to go, but I wanted the idea that your potential is not there from the start. You had to earn your potential to then go on to do those great things. Um, and when it comes to earning your powers, it definitely felt like it was a choice. It's not something that was like thrust upon you. It was something that um, you go through step by step. And it's not relegated to just people who were highborn or people who were blessed or for different types of earning their power or being born with their powers or being given their powers. Um, and instead to be able to earn them, it became like something like hopeful, I guess, that we can kind of choose the way that we're going to go and that we have some kind of, I like that idea that we have some kind of hand in how things are going to go. And, but I also like the idea that you can be completely different from the person next to you and you can both be worthy of accomplishing great things and it can be for completely different reasons. Like um so in the books we have our seven trials and they all kind of center around these different characteristics, virtues, attributes that we deem people to have, and most of them for the most part are positive, but there's different ways to be each of those attributes. So there's different ways to be smart. There's different ways to be brave. There's different ways we act out and show those virtues. And it kind of shows that like we are all vastly different from everyone else, and we think about things different ways. We internalize things differently, but we can all do great things in those different ways. So I really wanted to be able to show that as much as it is about choosing for yourself what you're going to do, it's also we can all it's something that everyone is open to.
Mm.
So
Wow, I love that answer.
thank
That's so
you.
cool. I do agree with you that like people are so unique and you can have someone who's very book smart, right? They get a lot of really good grades, but then you could have someone who maybe is more like wisdom smart, they have a lot of common
Exactly.
sense, right? So, but they
Yeah.
both have parts to play in humanity and gifts. So, I love that.
Exactly.
Okay, so I noticed one of your like tropes is that it's a Hunger Games inspired book. So I wanted to know what made you choose that route.
So that's definitely up to interpretation. I've heard people apply it in different ways to War Hour. So I definitely lean it towards more that the fact that um, there's something wrong happening. There's an injustice that we've all kind of accepted is the normal. And this is like Lista's world before she kind of is opened up to the whole of Aloria. And there's things going wrong and we don't feel like we have the power to change it, but we are kind of thrust into a space where we kind of have to choose, okay, this is something that we can do, this is something we can make a difference on.
Mm.
um, so I would definitely say the Hunger Games stems from the lack of power becoming powerful in their own way and not the way, like for example in Hunger Games, like it's not like Katniss became the people in the Capitol, or she didn't become that to make power. She stayed the way that she was and found power in who she was to kind of get there. But then there's also like the more surface level comparison to Hunger Games, where there's like the arena battle, there's combat, there's weaponry, there's finding physical advantage, but also strategic advantage. So it's also some of the same atmosphere and environment that's also kind of similar. So I guess you could kind of compare it in a couple different ways. I definitely lean more towards it's like the injustice and the uprising side of it, but they're both definitely comparable.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Nice. So were you a big Hunger Games girl when it came out? Yeah.
Yeah. I I read it. What grade did I read it in? I think I read it in like sixth grade, maybe. My sister read all of the big YA. She's 3 years older than me, and she read all of the big YA fantasy books first, and then of course I would get them after her because she would let me borrow them. And then I definitely I was a big book nerd. I Hunger Games, Divergent, like Percy Jackson, like all of the ones that we all grew up reading or have read at some point for the most part. Like I was like devouring them. Um, and it was definitely like it was my happy place. I loved it. I loved being able to read through like a book in a day and getting to be inside these worlds. And Hunger Games was definitely the most, at the time, definitely the most interesting and unique kind of book that there really was. Not that there was, but that I'd read, and it was something that I hadn't even like fathomed. It definitely opened up my mind to the possibilities of like what kind of stories could be told. So I definitely, it was definitely one of the formational books for my childhood.
Mm. Mine was The Selection. I loved those books.
Oh, yep, yep. I read that
Pure
too.
cast, man.
Oh,
Yeah. They were just so good.
oh.
And I loved that her name was America. I was like, oh, it's so cute.
I swear, after reading that series, I had like five different dreams where my name was America for some reason. Like, I definitely very much internalized all of the books that I read because I loved that book so much. And yeah, no, they were such good books. I have like dedication to like forever holding on to the way books made me felt when I was younger. And I can just remember, like, I think it was like summer and it being like something like, oh my gosh, like this is like so creative. And so, yeah, I think that was one of the first books that I read that was, it had a stronger, I guess today we would call it romantasy. Like there was
Mm,
Hunger Games where it was like romantic fantasy. And then I would feel like Selection kind of leaned in a little bit more towards the romantic side. Um, but I loved it. It was such a good book.
yeah. I'm not like a big Bachelor fan. Uh, just never got into it. I have four brothers. You know, we were watching the superhero movies. We weren't watching The Bachelor. But
Yep.
that book, I would watch that movie. I
Hey,
would watch
same.
that Bachelor. Okay. What is some advice that you would give to an aspiring author?
Mm. Just keep writing. Like there's so many times where you think, especially writing is a very individual, alone pursuit, and it's very rarely something that we get encouragement on and get
Mm,
positive feedback as we're actively doing it. So it's very hard. I know it was very hard for me to like finish the book. Like I remember trying to write my first book when I was like 13, and like I think I'm very much positive enforcement, like driven. I thrive on hearing that I've touched people or that they liked something or something made them laugh. So it's very hard when you're in the first draft and you're not really sure where your story's going, and you are still trying to figure out if this is something you can do. Like the hardest thing is to keep going, and like that's the number one thing that I would say is just keep writing. If you have found an idea or a book's like a story idea that has made you excited and is making you feel things just writing it, then you just got to keep going. And it's not it's not a race, it's not a competition, it's just getting out the story that you want to tell the way you want to tell it, and then the rest of it will just find its place along the way. But you'll never become a bestseller if you never write the book, and
mm,
that's going to be the hardest part. Most people, I forget what the percentages that they say, but like most people who start writing a book do not finish the book, and then don't worry about it being perfect. That's another thing. Don't worry about it being perfect because it'll get perfect as you go, and in the beginning it's just telling yourself the story. So
mm.
that's a whole lot of advice in one thing, but
Yeah. So you're a of affirmation girly. Is it difficult for you to take critiques then?
um yeah, yes and no, not really. Like so I definitely thrive on feedback. Even if it's negative feedback, I I'm not someone who will like deny it and go against it. It can be hard
Mm,
sometimes, but it's not necessarily a bad thing for me because most of the time it is something that like, oh yeah, that is a weak spot for me, or I could see how like sometimes it's just up to personal preference, and that's something I always have to remind myself is that not every book is for every person, and you're writing the book hoping that it makes some kind of impact on someone, and if it doesn't, it might make an impact on somebody else.
mm,
In terms of like for bettering myself, I do think that I actually do well with critique. um we'll see long term how that works out. um but I would definitely say that the fact that anyone, even if there's people out there, even if you hate my book and if you didn't end up liking it, like I find like you took the time to read it, you were in my world that I created for a little bit, and I appreciate anyone who's spent a minute there. And um, overall, I think it's an honor just to have the book read. I definitely think
Mm,
so.
yeah. Are you an indie author or okay, so an indie author is an independently published book, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what you would consider me. I don't think I'm technically hybrid yet. So I do have two deals, two books coming out in the traditional market for overseas. I have one for Ukraine and one for Germany currently. Um, and they will be going through traditional publishing methods. But for my books, for English, for in the States, for international English, there I am independently published, yes.
Oh, I didn't even know you could do that. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
I'm learning something new every time I talk to you guys. Okay, what is your favorite part of the process in creating a book?
Hmm. Um, I would say the plotting and the outlining. I've said this before when I've done some like AMAs on my Instagram. Um, I love figuring out what's going to happen down the line. I like the domino effect of something happening and then all the way down the line, this thing triggers and it connecting 5 books later. Um, I like getting into the heads of like each individual character and being like, what would hurt you the most? What has hurt you so far? Um, and where are you starting and where are you going? And I'm like that's one of the things I'm so excited for in this series is that I have such high plans for these characters, and I'm so in love with all of them in terms of like who they've kind of become on their own, that planning it out, like what moments are gonna like I've never been one of the authors that's been like I love to make you cry, or like I love to like distress you. I've never understood that until I started thinking about the endpoints for some of these characters, and like sometimes the sad points are truly what's going to end the character arc in the best way possible. So now I've turned to the dark side, and I'm like, okay, I want to make them cry. But I truly just love like figuring out where the characters are going and figuring out like down the line the plotting and the structuring and that part of it's definitely my favorite part.
Hmm. I've always understood like the crying thing is you're so invested in the character that the author has made that it makes you
Mm-hmm.
emotionally connected, right? And I feel like those are the books that we really connect to and uh, share with other people because we're like, oh, this book was so good, right? Because it just we
Yeah.
just connected with it, you know? So at least I can understand where you're coming from, even though you're on the dark side now.
It also doesn't help that I was never someone who cried at books very often. Like there's some people who like look for a book because they like need a good cry. Like I don't find it. I don't think it's. I don't do that. I feel things very deeply. I would definitely say like I'm an empath of terms, but at the same time like I don't seek out that. So it was hard for me to connect from like the reader mind of like not really liking when I have to cry for like feeling emotional and feeling upset, but at the same time the writer side of it of like you're making people connect to it in a way that is making them have this release of emotion. Like it's a good thing in terms of you're touching someone in a way. So
I've never been a crier either. And then I read this one book called A Soul as Cold as Frost, and I
mhm.
bawled. I bawled. I
Mm-mm.
like every book, and I was like, huh, I didn't even know a book could do that to me.
Nope, yep, I got you.
Yeah, they're just some books, you know? Okay. Who is someone that you look up to, and did they impact your writing journey?
Mm. I think I'm very deeply inspired by everyone that I've read, everyone that I've talked to. I take inspiration from literally everything. The smallest of plot points or the smallest character arcs, like parts of it, have come from either me experiencing something or seeing something or knowing someone who has done something. Um, do you mean in terms of like other authors or just in
Yeah.
life?
Well, sometimes someone will tell me like the person that they were inspired most to write for was like their child, or the person that they were inspired by was their sister, and that's why they have this character in their book. So it can be an author, sometimes it's a family member. So I don't like to like put it in a box of it just being an author because some people
Yeah.
have other people.
Yeah. Um, I don't think I would pin it all in one specific person. I definitely
Mm,
think like I was saying, I draw inspiration from everything from everywhere. Um, definitely the way that maybe certain authors have written certain characters to like where they take hold of you might and then inspire how I write my own characters, but then there's also the friendships that I've made along the way and the impact and the way hardships and struggle and have impacted people in my life. I would definitely say that they all pile on in there. So,
mm.
but yeah.
Do you have like a favorite author that when they make a book, you're like, oh, I have to buy that right now?
A lot of them. Let's be honest, a lot of them. I'm awful at picking favorites, and it's been like I feel like it's like been my kryptonite my whole life. I cannot pick a favorite movie. I can't pick a favorite book. I can't pick a favorite anything. But there's a lot of people who I will immediately buy the next book. Um, Holly Black is one. Lee Bardugo. Um, I've recently fallen in love with I just lost my train of thought. I started going through my list of all my authors. Um, I definitely I tend to resonate more with a book than a series though. I've def or not a series.
Mm,
A a book or a series more than an author, for example. Like I definitely think that what someone does with one specific work tends to affect me like more. Um, but yeah, I don't think I would say hmm, that's a hard one.
no, I think that's great. Do you have like a series that you feel has impacted your writing style recently?
Mm, recently, I would say less so. Mainly
Mm,
because when I switched over from like a reader and writer in my head, it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And at that point, when you're reading, you start to look at it from a different perspective. So it's kind of keeping the mindful of like, don't not letting it affect your writing style. Take what take what they do and the world they create and their beautiful prose and be inspired from it, but not let it um, change the way you would write, I would say. Um, there's so many good authors out there though, and so many books. Like the one thing that makes me so upset in the world is that like, which I'm sure like is all readers is I will never have read every single book out there. All of the books on my TBR I will never be able to read because there's just not enough time. Because I would like to hear all of the stories and be a part of all of like there's so many books that I haven't read that I want to. Um, but yeah.
yeah, that's what. But doesn't Rory Gilmore have like a panic attack because she's like, there's so many more books and I'm so behind.
Yep. I there was a TikTok trend like 2 years ago or like during COVID where people were figuring out they wrote down a list of all of the books that Rory Gilmore read throughout the series and they figured out how much time it would take to read every single book that she's read and it was like I don't know if it was a lifetime but it was like 40, 50 years or something like that. I think it was like if you read like a book a week maybe it was or was it a book a day? I don't remember. But she read like a lot of books across the series and it would just take forever. I
Wow.
find that very daunting.
Yeah, I'm
Because
a
it's also like
slow
I'll never
reader.
be able to write all the stories I would want to write either. Like there's never gonna be enough
Mhm.
time to write all like of course I'm young, there's time, but like it's a daunting aspect.
It is, and you're never promised tomorrow, right? So you're always like, ah, gotta be
Mhm.
quick. Hmm.
Yeah.
What does the book community mean to you? Have you met lots of friends there?
Yeah. I love them so much. I will full on start crying right now. Um so book talk, bookstagram, author talk, authorgram, I guess it would be. I've met so many great people, like readers and authors alike, people who have been so supportive, like before the book came out, as the book was coming out and it was starting to find its readers. Like now, there's so many great people out there, and I'm like so fortunate to have like met so many of them. Sometimes it does kind of feel like you're subject to the algorithm or whatever when you're finding people, but then there's like people that have been there since the beginning, and they're like so excited for the next book, or I hope you're doing like the number of times where I do like an ask me anything, and there's so many questions where like they're like, how are you doing, like are you doing well, and it's just like it's so nice. It like I love it. It's such a good community. It's such good people, and there are so many different things that we all like. Everybody's different. Everybody reads different things. Everybody, um, we're all different, and the fact that I can connect with so many different people at once, and like sometimes I hate social media, and then sometimes I just like love it, and um, like some people just send me like sweet messages of like where they are in the book, and or that they saw my post and it inspired them that they want to start writing, and they're asking for advice of like what do I do first, like how do I find my idea of what's going to be my book, and it's just it's like it's inspiring. It's like it's such a great thing to be a part of, and like it's something that like I'm saying like a lot. um I just heard it all of a sudden. I'm like, I'm saying it again. Um, but it's such a great place to be, and I'm so glad that like I'm writing and I'm reading in a time where it's something that's accessible to us, because it's
Mm,
something that normally would be very isolated, and it's just you at a desk with a computer and you're writing, and it's become something where it is very much like a community. There's people I want to meet. There's people I want to talk to like every day, and it's really nice. I love it. It's such a great place.
oh, you're so sweet. I love that. I mean, I just started hearing about these book cons. I've always been
Hmm.
I knew about Comic-Con and I knew about like the Ren Fair, right? But I've been seeing these book cons popping up too, and I feel like it's a great resource for you to start
Yeah.
meeting people. Even as like
Hmm.
just a
Yep.
reader, you know, you're gonna go connect with people who are gonna get your shirt reference, right? Or like
Yes, exactly.
so
Like
I
I
just
know
love
that
it.
discrete quote from that one series of like I know that like yes, it's because most of the time it doesn't always work out that the people that you're surrounded with in real life like the same books or like the same genre. Some people don't even like reading. They prefer movies or video games or sports. Like everyone connects on different things. So it's always like a great opportunity when you can find people who like the same things as you and who want to talk about it with you. I want to go to
Mm,
more of them as a reader too, because like there's so many authors I want to read, I want to meet, but there's also a lot of like readers I want to meet where you like
mm.
get to like chat about those books. They've started doing like retreats and stuff where like you all go find like an Airbnb or something for a weekend where you get to just meet with like a whole bunch of like readers and stuff. I just love that it's something that's starting to come up, and I love it.
Hmm. Yeah. We were just at a Target the other day and I saw someone had a Fourth Wing shirt and I like slapped my husband. I was like, babe, she has a Fourth Wing shirt. But I was too shy
Yeah,
to say anything. I should have said something, but I was too shy in the moment. But I was just so
that would be
excited.
me. Yeah, yeah. I could see someone like holding my book in public, and I'd still be too afraid to go up to like anybody. Like
Uh-huh.
because when you're shifting from something that's very individual on your own to something where you're trying to like communicate with more people and stuff like that, and you want to meet, it's a bridge to gap that's very difficult. Gap
Hmm.
bridge, yes, but
I agree. Well, the idea behind this podcast is the Lonely Girls
Mhm.
Book Club, and it's kind of encouraging people to meet other people, but also showing people, authors like you, that we may not be able to see their books in Barnes and Nobles, but they have incredible stories, right? So it's an opportunity for people to meet people, and that's why I started it. So I like
Yeah.
asking that question. Okay, if you could use a one quote to convince us to read your book, what would it be?
That's such a hard one.
hmm
Um, mm, that's
If
a
you
hard
can
one
narrow it
because
down to
pe
three, that's good too.
oh dear. Like I'm like thinking in like the hundreds of quotes. I'm like, I definitely think different quotes attract different people because there's like the inspiring ones, and then there's like the romantic ones that kind of like make your heart swoon a little bit. Um, I don't know. I definitely some of them are spoilers, I think. Um,
Mm,
I definitely think that the one that I like, if someone asked me to put down my favorite quote, like if I'm signing a book or something like that, I definitely frequently put down kill the fear, which kill the fear to free the innocent. And
mm,
it doesn't always make a lot of sense to someone who hasn't read the book yet, but I think just kill the fear on its own, it really speaks to like it's gonna be it's what kind of ahead like it's like an empowering story ahead. You're gonna be kind of like struggling with some things. Um, of the other ones, yeah, there's so many that I feel like would be too much of spoilers. Um, I'm always afraid of that. Like spoilers are my greatest fear because so many things in my book are so easily spoiled. Like from like two chapters in, like that could be a spoiler for like it ruins a lot of the great reveals. So I'm very fearful of spoilers.
mm,
Um, I would definitely say the kill the fear. I think that's my favorite. Like if I was ever to like make merch or something like that of something that I would wear for my own book, it'd be kill the fear. I think that sentence means the most to me. Um, in terms of would it convince someone to read, I don't know, but
mm. I think it would convince me. I'm convinced. I really like that. Did you know that fear actually means the absence of faith, and faith means the absence of fear? Did you
I
know
did
that?
not know that. I
That's their
didn't.
dictionary. Yeah, that's their dictionary definition. And what's interesting about kill the fear is because what she's choosing to do is have faith in herself, right? That's what kills her
Hmm.
fear. So, I mean, that would be very convincing for a book, right?
You're like writing lore for my own book right now. I love it. Oh,
Um, well, how else would you convince someone to read your book? How do you normally do it?
um, I definitely a lot of if I only have like they call it the elevator pitch. The elevator pitch is always
Mm,
just the earn powers because I definitely think that's it's not the only book to ever have that, but it's definitely something that you don't see as often. But my favorite part that I usually like in person try to explain it with is that the person that you are matters, the decisions that you make matter, and like who you are as a person can determine your fate. And that's kind of how the story kind of unfolds is like the person that you are matters. And I think that's something that we all kind of want to be reassured of is that like we make some sort of difference and that we are important in the little ways that we're different from each other. So I usually try to lean into the both the earn powers and like the person you are matters.
mm, I agree. I work with kids. I'm a dance teacher, and
Mm.
it's so fun to see their unique personalities and how they mesh. And like one time there was like a little girl that was really sad, and there was another girl that was like, "Are you okay?" And I gave her a hug, and I was like, "Oh, so sweet." So it
My heart.
matters. And yeah, it matters because you each have a purpose and you each have something that you can share with the world that we can't, right? And that's what
Yeah,
your book is. It's something you can share with the world that I can't do. My
yeah,
story would be different, right? So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
I would definitely say that would convince me to read a book for sure. I remember watching because um I think it was TikTok. I remember watching one of your TikToks. And first off, what sold me was that I would get your autograph because I've never had an autograph book before. And I was like, yep, I'm gonna buy that. But also, it was just really interesting that you decided to have clean fantasy, or is it clean
hmm
romantasy? Are you a romantasy?
That that's a conversation on its own. I say romantic fantasy just so I don't
Okay.
confuse anyone. It's definitely more
Mm,
fantasy leaning, but it's romantic fantasy. But yeah.
okay. That was something that struck me as interesting because I think it takes your book in a different direction
Mhm.
where you're like, okay, how could we make this more of a slow burn or something? And to me, it's more interesting sometimes because you get to know the characters emotionally, right? Not
Mhm.
just physically. So, what made you like want to write a clean romantic fantasy?
I there's definitely readers for both genres. Everyone's looking
Uh-huh.
for something different in the books that they read. I was definitely thinking of it in terms of um who I was when I was younger, what I was reading, what I want my because I do really think that YA fantasy is not relegated to just people who are 14 to 18 or
Mm-hmm.
14 to 16 or whatever age groups they put on it when they put it on like a publisher's website. It really is accessible to a large age range. But I wanted it to be something that for two reasons. One thing, I wanted it to be something that anyone would be comfortable reading and not having to be worried about something that they didn't want to read, whether it be language or spice. I wanted it to be something that um, not was safe, but was comfortable for everyone. And then there's also the aspect of I really do think that there are a lot of relationships and turmoil and romantic interactions that can be explored that don't necessarily need or are improved by having spice. Like, I think back to like all the books that I was reading when I was in high school, younger, older, where it wasn't as common where you'd see spice or closed door scenes in a YA book. It's kind of more common now. But back when I was reading, it was like the interactions and the love stories, a lot of its foundation was just your connection with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily something physical. Um, so I definitely just wanted to make something that could touch a wider audience. Um, but yeah, it's and it was definitely a difficult decision when you well, not difficult decision. It was actually quite easy. It it right now the spicy fantasy, the romantasy is very, very popular. Um, and so it's sometimes it's difficult to decide something that's not necessarily what's going viral right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I just wanted to be able to create that, like you were saying, like the slow burn where because like that's my favorite. I love the hate to love, enemies to lovers, the slow burn where it truly is going from a place of I don't know who you are to I know you better than anybody else. And I
Mm.
think that can really be the connection we're looking for sometimes, depending on what you're looking for when you're reading.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a time and place for everything, for sure.
Mhm.
I also think like if you're gonna make a book that a 14-year-old would pick up, it it
Mhm.
needs to also resonate with that 14-year-old. And they're not having the same types of relationships that a 20-year-old is having, or even like an 18-year-old, right? So I like that you said
Exactly.
that you wanted a nice wide range because every person's at a different place in their life, and like every age you're at a different place, right? So you're not going to resonate
Yes.
with an Accord of Thorns and Roses all the time, right? Some people might,
Mhm.
some people won't. So that's great. I like that answer.
It also it really when I was first writing the story, like we talked about like the type of person you are matters and the earning and making a choice for yourself and what your life is. I definitely think that that itself has such a wide range of people who it would appeal to. That type of um strong female character, um the choice and your fate and your destiny and the kind of difference you can make. That can be
Mm.
important to someone who's 14. It can be important to someone who's younger. It can be important to someone who's 25, 30, 35. So by making sure that it's something that's accessible for all of those ages without them having to really worry about like what am I reading, um that was also something that was like in the back of my mind, is that this applies to a lot of people, so I didn't want to limit who it could really reach and connect with, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I read all kinds of books. I've got like children's books, I've got adult books. But the books that I really love are the ones that you get to know the character and there's like
Hmm.
a meaning behind what their story is, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why I like to read a book.
Nope, I got you, absolutely.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else you would like to add?
mm, I don't think so, other than that I'm just really excited for everyone to be able to read Valorborn, and that I'm really, really grateful for everything that I've had so far. That's all I want to say then.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to read it too. I keep looking to see if there's new information.
Any day
Um,
now.
okay, I'm looking. I'm really watching. Um, well, thank you for being on the podcast. I have
Of
so
course.
loved getting to know you, and really, I really
Mhm.
appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Of course. And thank you for having me. I loved getting to do this. I loved getting to know you.
And that's a wrap. Isn't she so cute? I love her. I have been I've been very privileged to be on her street team. We're all super excited to support her. In fact, she had a goal of like 10,000 followers, I think, before the year ended or something, and she's at like 25,000. So she has an amazing book, y'all. If this book sounds like something that you would love, check out the link below. And you can find her Instagram down there to go click and follow her there too. If you liked this podcast episode, I would appreciate it if you would just leave me a like, maybe a comment if you would like to have on next. And I would love to see you hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you never miss one of our episodes. Thank you so much. Love you. Have a great week.